Well, hello and welcome everyone to Sunshine Cathedral. Christians and Cocktails here with us on Monday evening. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us. We certainly know that you have clicked to be anywhere else, but you have clicked to be with us this evening, and we are very appreciative of that. Of course, we have our panel tonight with us. We have Dentis and Tito. We have Sam and Tara, and Reverend Margarita is not with us this evening. She has to do some work-related stuff, but of course, we got our senior minister with us tonight, and we appreciate Sam doing market placement and started us off just right with that market placement and advertising of the Sunshine Cathedral. Just PSAs right up the front. Monday through Saturday, of course, is midday prayer at noon. I invite you to join us. Of course, on Mondays is Christians and Cocktails. On Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Is Share in the Chair. And this week's Share in the Chair is the Reverend Gail Tapscott. That name may be familiar to a lot of you. She used to be in the area here for quite some time. She was a pastor of the Unitarian Church, and she's since retired and moved to
Mississippi.
Mississippi. That's what I thought it was in Mississippi now. But this Wednesday at 6, she will be with us for a Share in the Chair. And then, of course, on Saturday at 12:30 is Darrell and Cindy Lippert show. And then, of course, on Sunday, it is the Sunshine Cathedral live worship. In the room at 9 o'clock and live online and Facebook and YouTube at the 10:30 service. So, but now you are here for Christians and Cocktails, and our Christian and cocktail word for the night is somebody. We need a word. We need a word.
Jesus.
We've already done Jesus, haven't we?
Yeah, Jesus has been done.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll drink to that.
This is what happens, audience. This is what happens when the Reverend Margarita Rodriguez is not with us.
Exactly. She's not here to keep us balanced and
adult
sane.
in the room. And this is what happens.
So maybe the word for tonight, in honor of Reverend Margarita, who's not with us, is the word center. Center. So shall we center ourselves and begin?
With a drink.
Darrell is all yours.
All right. Well, let's all right. I'm trying to see which part of Denito do I want? Dennis.
That's me.
The den of Denito.
Ask
for something.
What's your take on the rapture?
Wow, right off the bat.
Yeah, I wanted to go for that one. That one was.
That was an Anita Baker song. It was pretty good. For those if you're new to us, by the way, what happens is
What had happened?
This group of people, we sit around and we've got questions that we've collected, some from the panel, some from the world, some from you as you're watching, because you can ask a question right now. Just type it in. Our moderator, Tito.
Are you stalling?
The Ito of Benito will let us know what your question is, and we'll answer it. Or if we don't get to it, we'll add it to the queue for later. So
he's centering.
That's what I miss. Margarita is what. So that's where the questions come from, and that's what we're doing. Because I'm the senior minister, I always get to answer first. There's sort of a stump the pastor situation, but then after I've done my best, everyone else chimes in if they want to, and so that's what we're doing. If you're new to us, if you're old to us, you know what we're doing, and you're already fixing your second cocktail, so that's fine. Now the rapture. What I think about it is right now, just now, is the most I've thought about it in probably 10 years. It's not something that I'll give us time, because it isn't a thing. It's not sorry, I know it's important to somebody, but it's not a thing. I don't think it's going to happen. I know people have spent a long time thinking it might happen, predicting when it would happen, living as if it might happen, but it's not really a thing. There's a verse, a Pauline verse, where he talks about people being caught up in the air, and that's what the rapture, is supposed to refer to. I think it's a metaphorical phrase. It doesn't happen a lot. It doesn't, he says it this one time. And then because people think they know what it means, then they try to find other proof texts and they come up with 2 or 3 that seem to support it. But it's one of those things where you take 2 or 3 or 4 different passages that are completely unrelated, and you weave a story around them, and then they become proof of the story. And I just don't buy it. I don't think that our bodies are going to defy gravity to fly up into the sky. For what point? Because we don't live on a flat Earth in a 3-tiered universe. So where would up be for us? So it's all it's from a different cosmology. I think it's euphemisms taken too literally, and I don't think anyone really believes it, because I've known too many people who said, "Oh, it's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years," and yet they take out a 30-year mortgage. They don't believe it. They do not believe that it's all over in a minute. They are still making plans for their lives. So, and good, please do, please live your life, plan your life. So I think the rapture is actually pretty dangerous escapist ideology that says we're in the right group, so we're fine. And when things get really terrible, we will be rescued and we won't have to deal with it. And all these other poor slobs will be left behind and they'll have to deal with it. A few of them, will see the light later, and they'll still make it to heaven, but they'll have to go through all the little plagues and tortures. It's just more us against them. Some of us are exceptional and the rest of them aren't. And because we're in the exceptional group, we don't really have to worry because we're going to be spared all that. I think not only is it an escapist fantasy, it's not a very kind one. It's not a very generous one. And it's just not one that I subscribe to. You've never heard me preach about it in the pulpit.
No, never. And so, question: is this part of the literature, revelation, apocalyptic scripture? Is it part of that? I mean, you said it was Paul's writing, but
well, in Thessalonians, I think is where the phrase "caught up in the air."
Okay.
I'm in Mario's room, where of course there's not a Bible.
Look under the makeup kit.
Check the bedside table. Bedside table. There's got to be.
I dare not. So yeah, I mean, it really is sort of a thing pieced together, and they use some of the apocalyptic literature, from Revelation, and there are apocalyptic phrases in a lot of the scriptures. I mean, Matthew is pretty apocalyptic. Mark can be a little apocalyptic. Daniel and Ezekiel are apocalyptic. In fact, Revelation, which is of course apocalyptic, steals liberally from Daniel and Ezekiel. And so apocalyptic literature is a style of literature, and from a period lasting about 300 or 400 years. And it was written in a period that was chaotic, and it was meant to be hopeful. It was resistance literature to resist the empires that are creating these situations where some people are enslaved and countries are invaded, and a tiny amount of people get very, very rich, and other people struggle even to survive, and where certain groups are targeted and marginalized and exiled or tortured, and it's a difficult time. And the apocalyptic literature says God's not going to let that happen forever. Eventually, God's going to break through, and the world as it is right now is going to end, and something better will replace it. And so it's actually hopeful. It's resistance literature. Don't give in, don't give up hope, because eventually this mess is going to be replaced by something better. So it's political, it's philosophical, it's optimistic, and yet the way we've read it and taught it, we act as if it is a prediction of a literal end, and then we use that to scare people to join our club. And that is not how it was ever meant, I don't believe. I don't think that's a good reading of it. I don't think that's a responsible use of it. And I don't think that's in any way good news for anyone.
Well, I think you used a key word that was a scare tactic. It was used to control people, to get people to do what they wanted them to do. And I think it's lost its value as time went on. So I think it's part of antiquity that I think some folks want to keep alive the myth of who's in and who's out, and who can make it in, who can't make it in. So
I
it's not
do.
a.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's not a centering opportunity for me.
Wow. Cheap trick.
This
Cheap
is-
trick. Right?
Although when I see people threaten about the rapture and they're like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be happy because all y'all are going to be gone. Like, I think
Right.
it's a great idea.
You're gonna get a parking
Exactly.
place more easily.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yes.
It's gonna, yeah, and we're not gonna be annoyed by people. So yeah, there's that. And time and again, this now we're gonna mosey into Revelation. Time and again, Revelation is written in response to the Roman government. So remember that. The beast is the emperor. The dragon is the Roman army. And 666, that is the numeral, that's the numerological value of Caesar, of Nero Caesar's name. So this is all, again, the seven, you see seven a lot, because there's the seven hills of Rome. There's this, Big Brother's always watching sort of thing. So there's a monster with a lot of eyes, and so everything is about the way imperialism works: conquering, dominating, frightening, abusing, and we see that over and over and over again throughout history. We see that with the Soviet Union. We see that with the British Empire and all of its colonization. We see that with the Russian Empire. We see that with Napoleon. We see that with Nazi Germany. So we've seen this over and over, and we see this, if we will look objectively, we see this in the U.S. A time or two in our history and or present. That when a power becomes so powerful, it thinks of itself as almost all powerful. That power is almost always abused, and then people resist. People take to the arts or to the streets or to the ballots or whatever, or they take up arms or and there's resistance. And so apocalyptic literature, I actually like it, and I do preach from apocalyptic literature, but always as resistance literature fueled by hope, that the world as it is now doesn't have to be this way. And so us standing on principles can change it. We can usher in a divine realm, a better realm, a more just realm. And so yes, the world will end as it is, as we've known it, as it is existing right now, and a new one will be born, and we'll have a chance to make that better. You could say we had that chance when the Axis powers fell in 1945. But did we keep it going? Did we, or did we, fall asleep at the switch again? And now, and there have been other times that we've had to say, okay, this has gotten out of hand. This needs to come to an end, and something new and better be born. So I actually like apocalyptic literature, but I hate the way it has been used. What is, I don't know anything about the way LDS, the LDS uses this stuff.
I've been lost this whole time, quite
I don't
honestly.
even know about the
Well, I've
rapture.
definitely heard about the rapture, and I was thinking,
Good.
so the Book of Mormon doesn't really talk about the rapture. We talk about the second coming. Is
Right.
that the same? That's the rapture?
Well, I shouldn't even say fundamentalists, the premillennialists or whatever they call themselves, that faction of right-wing Christianity says that the rapture will precede the second coming, or is it or is it follow the second coming? Anyway, it is connected but not the same. And there's premillennial and postmillennial and pre-tribulation and post-tribulation. They make it all up. But yeah, so it's connected, but it's not the same thing. I mean, and again, I think we have wasted a lot of time waiting for Jesus to return. When Jesus takes Elijah's cup at the Passover meal, which we celebrate as his last supper, his last Passover meal, the cup he raises is Elijah's cup. And so when he takes Elijah's cup, that is because there's a legend that Elijah will return. And so you would set a place at the table, you'd leave the door unlocked in case Elijah shows up at your house, you'd be ready for him. And so when Jesus takes Elijah's cup, it's as if to say, let's don't wait for the prophet to come back and do our work for us. Let's us be the prophetic movement, the prophetic voices that call for change and justice and healing and hope. And so that a lot of us have just made Jesus be the new Elijah. Now Jesus is the one coming back, and I think Jesus himself showed with Elijah's cup. Don't wait for the guy to come back. We have to be that presence. We have to be that voice. We have to be that principle in action. We're the return, and I think that's what we see at the story of Pentecost. We see the ascension. Jesus rises, and then a spirit descends on the early church, and that is the return of Christ. That is the Spirit of Christ falling on the church to be Christ in the world. So we're the prophet. We're the ones. And that's exactly what happens with Elijah. In the story of Elijah, Elijah is taken up in a whirlwind, and a double portion of his spirit falls on his disciple, Elisha. And I think we're Elisha. Our prophet spirit has fallen on us. We are now the prophet. Collectively, we are the movement that are meant to do what he did, not wait for him to come back and fix it for us.
And people have been waiting for Elijah a lot longer than they've been waiting for Jesus.
I'm saying. So, see, you get me, you set me up, you wind me up, and now we're halfway through. We've done one question. I'm no longer centered.
Ah,
You should be.
have a drink, it'll help.
Exactly. No, that's good. That's good. That's good. I didn't know I had a lot of thoughts about that, but apparently I do. Any other thoughts about the so-called rapture?
Yeah, I was going to say, when you were saying earlier that certain people would be chosen and just taken up above or whatever to heaven, in the way that you teach at church where God loves unconditionally, it would make me think that God wouldn't pick and choose who gets to go up there on the rapture.
Right.
So I would think that maybe everyone would go.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And everyone does.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't defy gravity to get to whatever's next, but whatever is next is for everyone, and we all get there, I believe. Again, remember, it doesn't even make sense. I mean, if we live on a flat Earth in a 3-tiered universe, and heaven is just the attic, and it's just a matter of getting up to the attic, and so there's this invisible escalator that we take. Well, okay, that can be the rapture, but that's not the world we live in. That's not our cosmology. That's not how any of us think, except when we're talking about religion.
Right.
That's not the universe we live in.
Yeah.
We've traveled space. But, when people are just sitting on the ground at night looking up at the stars, making it all up, they did a great job, but they were more poets than scientists. And now we have, science, and now we have astrophysics, and the ancient myth doesn't fit with our current physics, and so you got to rethink one of them. And I think that the thing that we made up to make sense of things is easier to adapt than the hard science that we have fearlessly and exhaustively investigated. So. All right, thank you, Danito.
you're welcome.
Samra, why don't you ask us one? Sam of Samra, why don't you ask us something?
I have had a question on the docket for several weeks now that I've yet to ask. So I think today is the day.
We anxiously await your question.
I'm
It's like the
sure.
rapture.
Drum roll, please. All right.
Centering.
How do you pray without sounding selfish?
Mm.
Like, even when I pray, I say what I'm thankful for, but then it's always followed by, and please bless me with this and this and this. And so then I just feel like the thankful part just sounds like I'm just going through the motions to get to what I really want in my prayer.
It's like bargaining. It's like, well, here's all the things I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, you know what? You're a great person. You're a very pretty person. And you do a great job, except for the following 10 things that suck. I mean, so we've all heard that, right? And so yeah, we being damned with faint praise is a thing. And, right?
Yeah.
So, and I do. Speaking of selfish, I do want to add a little clarification here. It's Christians and cocktails. We drink throughout the thing. See, this is not a super huge glass. We drink throughout the 40 minutes or so. mostly just to keep ourselves centered. But it's just the one. It's just the one. And probably everyone right now has got a little octane in their glass. But a lot of times there'll be someone that they're drinking diet soda or fizzy water or whatever. So it's just the one. Not everyone even. So I just want to be. We have a good time, and I just want. But if you're, but I always want to be mindful that there are people in recovery, and we want to be very respectful and supportive of that. So we aren't just guzzling here. We have one, and sometimes not even everyone has one. So
this is Gatorade.
And see, we're not at 100%.
It just looks pretty in my fancy glass.
It does look pretty in the fancy glass. So I just want to put that out there that it's Christians and cocktails, and trust, mine is a cocktail. But we also want to be very respectful and very mindful of people who don't drink, and so there. Okay, so there's that. First of all, how do you not sound selfish
or feel selfish?
It's well, okay, that is a different question.
Maybe that's the question.
Because sound selfish implies I'm worried about how I'll be judged.
Yeah, it implies that God's judging me. That's true. Yeah.
Right. Like, how do I not sound like a douche because someone who's a douche may not be getting what they want? That's the Santa Claus good kids and bad kids theology. Like, I'm keeping a list, and so if I sound douchey, that puts me on the bad kid list, and I'm not going to get what I want. So, and how many times there was Rabbi Morris Lichtenstein used to say, he's the founder of the Jewish Science Society, which is a new thought movement within Judaism. They still have their center in New York City. And he used to say that he preferred, yeah, wow.
She's on it. It's like Gatorade.
Wow. I wasn't aware that verbs and nouns were interchangeable with the drinking business, but okay.
It was a word. We didn't say what.
It's true. And I said we only have the one, but with Sam keeping score, I might have to take a little break and refill my glass. But anyway, Rabbi Lichtenstein said that he preferred to pray silently because when you pray audibly, you're concerned about how you sound. Like, it's almost like an audition.
Yeah.
And so he said he preferred to pray silently using visualization, a feeling of gratitude, an awareness of the divine presence, and visualizations of what you were hoping to achieve, rather than even to use your voice. He said, if you have trouble visualizing, if you have trouble imagining things, that you should go ahead and speak affirmations and whatnot, but that he preferred all silent prayer because when you're doing it audibly, it's almost like an audition. You are concerned with how you sound, and so if you mispronounce a word, or if you say something that's not grammatically correct, then you may stumble on it because you're worried about this little misstep that has nothing to do with the desire of your heart or your communion with the divine. So he actually really supported silent prayer because worrying about how we sound is actually an impediment.
Yeah.
So there's that. Secondly, if God knows our hearts, if God is everywhere, if we're part of God, if God knows our hearts, there's no point in hiding anything from God anyway. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether I voice it or not, whether I think it or not, whether I write it or say it, if a thing is what I'm experiencing, if a thing is what I'm feeling, surely God knows. And so my choosing not to say it has not tricked God. You know what I mean? So, and I don't know how selfish we can be. Selfish is when I want something at the expense of someone else. I want it and I don't want you to have it. I just want it. That's selfish. And that's no good. But I want what will make me feel fulfilled. I want to be healthy. I want to love my job. I want to have good friends. I want to have adequate transportation. I want a pet to cuddle with and to scratch and to make me feel like I'm just the center of their universe. I want these things, but I don't want anyone else to not have those things. These are good things, and I want everyone who wants good things to have good things. And so, yeah, when I wanted all for me or for my class of people or for my group of people, I want it for me or for a small us, and I'll take it from other people to make sure I have it, or I'll try to keep them from having it so that we can have more. That's selfish. For me to want to be happy, healthy, prosperous, loved, why wouldn't we want that? And if we want that for everyone, I don't think that's selfish. So, and since God is the one power and the one presence, God is the natural one we would turn to help us figure out how to get what we think will enrich our lives. So I don't know that it is innately selfish, especially if you're not trying to deny it to anyone else. And I do take to heart Rabbi Lichtenstein's advice that when we speak our prayers aloud, that alone can trip us up, because we want them to sound right. We want them to sound eloquent or erudite or pretty or theologically sound or, whatever. And none of that has anything to do with the efficacy of prayer.
Thank you.
So
yeah, you always run into those people who don't have a very large vocabulary when they speak like person to person, but then they pray and they're like, "Our dear hallowed Father, which art in heaven," and they like they become someone else almost. And it's like it's a little strange. So
yes,
you know who I'm talking about. She knows who I'm talking about.
It's very uncentering.
That was close enough.
Well, sometimes it can feel performative. I guess that's the thing,
Right. And liturgy, which is the work of the people, liturgy is performative. And so a lot of our prayers in a public setting are about supporting a message, bringing people together, lifting people's spirits, painting a certain picture of God. So a lot of that is by nature performative. When we sing the Ave Maria is a prayer, but you also want it to sound beautiful, and it does sort of transport you to an inward place when it is beautiful. So there is a performative aspect of liturgy and even preaching. But our prayers, our personal prayers, if we are mimicking the performance of liturgy in our private prayers, then we're trying to get it right instead of just trying to connect. And when we're trying to connect, you can't get that wrong. But if we're trying to get it right, make it beautiful, then that's what we're focused on instead of focusing on the point of the prayer. And where attention goes, energy flows. So if our attention is on the performance, it isn't on the need, it isn't on the desire, it isn't on the trust in God, it isn't on the omnipresence, it isn't on the possibilities. So where our attention is, that's where the energy is flowing. So we don't want our attention to be on, did I sound pretty? Or did I sound erudite? Did I sound eloquent? Who cares? If it's just you in the shower praying, then how it sounds should be the least of anybody's concern. And so I don't know. What else? Anybody else thoughts about sounding selfish when you pray?
I was going to say, you've always told us that you just can't get it wrong. I mean, there's no wrong way to pray. And like you've said, God is omnipresent. God is omniscient. So God knows everything. So God already knows what's on our heart. We are just putting it out there, putting it in the universe. And like Darrell just said, where our attention goes, our energy flows. That's the way I could say it too.
I really like the idea of praying through visualization.
Me too.
Without using words, because I haven't prayed for most of my life, and I don't really believe in a personified God. And so the idea of sort of like having this conversation and, asking for things or even just venting or whatever is very foreign. And so, but, thinking of, having, visualizations that sort of like connect me with a collective spirit, I think is something that I can definitely do that falls within, my ideas of God, and is less of a conversation than like a, sort of like recognizing that.
Would you say a centering?
Yes.
And visualization is just really powerful in and of itself, even when you're not praying with visualization. You know, they say if you have a goal or something you want to achieve, visualize yourself achieving that goal and you're more likely to achieve it. So it makes perfect sense to visualize through prayer. I really like that.
Yeah. I realized, I'm going to blame COVID, but I think I was well on my way before COVID, that bigger than I've ever been. My all-time heaviest weight was 226. I, in recent weeks, reached 230. So I knew best. Yay! So I'm on a diet, and so now I'm down to 220. So 10 of it gone. Yay! And 20 more to go. But this is my 116th diet. And if it keeps going as well as it's going, it will have been my maybe 4th successful diet. The ones that have succeeded are the ones where I journal every calorie I put in my face. That is a visualization when I write it down and I think about, I got to write this down. And now it's super easy because I do it on my phone or my iPad, which are the same, the notes are the same. So whatever device I'm on, I can just, go to my notes and write it down. And I put the time and I put how many calories and I put how many grams of protein. And so I'm always seeing the chart. I'm imagining it. I'm pulling it up. I'm adding to it. I'm recounting to make sure that my previous count was correct. And then at the end of the day, because I have a goal, and if I'm under that goal, I usually share that with somebody who will celebrate with me and make me feel good about it. And so, yeah, the diet is a diet. And yet what seems to make it work better for me is if I have some system of focusing and looking at what I'm doing. And so what I'm visualizing is these numbers. So many calories, so much protein. I'm trying to eat very small meals, but every 2 hours, all day long. And that's sort of a liturgy of the hours for me. That's sort of a being very mindful and very focused by writing it all down and thinking about it and being faithful to it. And so even that's a form of visualization, and it's the only times it's ever worked for me. So there is power. There is power in seeing with your mind's eye, with seeing with your imagination, with focusing on the idea, even before you get to, enacting it or whatever. All right, Tito, isn't it time for you to
Ask a question.
do something?
Okay. Why is God so often referred to as a masculine figure?
This is the easy one. God stands up to pee. Case closed. Or the people who wrote all the stories stood up to pee. That is what is more likely. No, it is. It's just patriarchy. It's just sexism. We have 2 creation myths in the front of our Bible, and one of them says very clearly that God created male and female in the divine image, and yet we've acted as if the divine image was exclusively male. Well, we organizations who have historically been run by men. There are certainly in Scripture all kinds of ways to describe, a lot of metaphors, a lot of euphemisms for God. God is described as a rainbow, as a castle, as a rock, as a mother eagle, as a lord, as a monarch, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a nursing mother. Job says that it is God's womb that gave birth to the oceans and to the ice and the blizzards, the storms. And so, I mean, we have Mama God, we've got Papa God, we've got Rock God and Castle God and Rainbow God and Eagle God in our scriptures. And that's before we even get to other traditions, which is why I often pray, God of many names, mystery beyond our naming, because there's so many ways that people have thought about God and talked about God, and not exclusively in male imagery and male names. But the reason we have focused on that, while we have chosen to make or allow God to be exclusively male, is because that is what was taught by male-dominated religious institutions. And you always have to ask, whenever anything becomes sort of encoded, who benefits from that? Who would benefit from there only being one God, and that God is male? I wonder who would benefit from that. You know, probably the person who wrote that, who codified that, who first enforced that, probably was not a woman. Probably. Hopefully we can all see ourselves in God, and hopefully we can see the divine spark in all kinds of reality. But this God is Father, and God is King, and God is Lord, and that's just it. That creates an imbalance. If your divinity is all male, if your divinity is only male, then only males can be divine. And that is problematic. It's also untrue and it's unfair. And so I'm not saying that it was nefarious. I'm not saying it was intentional, but the result has been male-dominated religions have presented an all-male God, and that has privileged males throughout history. And I think it is the just and righteous thing to challenge that and offer alternatives, which is why we use inclusive language at the Sunshine Community.
I grew up with God as a he, so I've always given God that masculine gender. And lately, in the past maybe year or so, I've been trying to shift that away from the he, and not even saying she or any other gender, just saying God. And like, well, he, no, just God. I'm just replacing the he for God, so that I don't give it any gender or any other type of form. Just God.
I like messing with people. I give God a female
She.
pronoun. Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of fun to me.
Or
And,
Oprah.
right. And well, Oprah is God. And but yeah, growing up in the church, I mean, what I was always taught was the Bible is God's word. Period. End of story. That's the way it is. And since God's word says God is a he, that's what we were taught. So that's, I mean, you know, I've grown out of that. Absolutely. You know, I don't believe that anymore. There's a lot that I've unlearned. I've had to unlearn. And I'm thankful for finding
one of the names for God in the Bible is El Shaddai.
Exactly.
Which is often translated as God Almighty, which is not what it means at all. It is then the secondary way it is translated is God of the mountains, which is a literal translation. That is more accurate. What is often not said, though, is that mountains are also a metaphor for breasts. And so feminist scholars tell us that the God of the mountains is actually means the breasted God, the mother God, or as our friend the Reverend Dr. Mona West likes to say, the big boob God. And so so El Shaddai is probably a feminine image for God. And there are others. I mean, the Shekinah glory, the Shekinah of God, that is an energy, and it's feminine. The Ruach, the Spirit of God, that is feminine. In Greek, it's pneuma, which is gender neutral, it. So when we're talking about the Spirit, we should always, if we're talking from our scriptures, we should always be talking about she or it. And yet, translators have, if you just pick up almost any Bible, you may see it sometimes, but you also see he sometimes. You will very rarely ever see she. I think priests for equality, they have an inclusive language Bible. I think they call the Spirit she very faithfully, but that's rare. That's rare. So yeah, it's misogyny and sexism and patriarchy and chauvinism and all of that influences that all male conception of the divine.
So let me ask you this. I was raised Mormon, as that we're all aware.
That's so
but I used to sing at a Catholic church, and they almost, to my interpretation, they almost worship Mary they pray to Mary. They give Mary, it seems like they give her offerings at they have a statue and they give her offerings. And so is that like the Catholicism answer for like a female God? Is Mary that figure?
Yeah, I think so. Although I'm speaking as a Protestant, Catholics would, I'm not here to attack or defend Catholicism, but from an objective, just looking in, if you had no dogs in the fight, you would say, oh, they have this male divine figure, Jesus, and his mother / consort is another divine figure, Mary, and that's how that would appear. That they're kind of big in the pantheon, and Mary is called a co-redemptrix in Catholic theology. She because Jesus is considered divine, she's called the Mother of God. She is venerated, not worship but venerated, except for worship and venerate basically mean the same thing. Adore, praise, but okay. But here's the thing about that. So you think, oh great, well there's your answer. You got a boy, you got a girl. You got the guy, and you've got his mother / consort. And so you got XX and XY. You got it all. Here's your balance. Yay, we brought in femininity. Except, who is the woman who is elevated to this co-redemptrix position? She is a perpetual virgin.
Mm-hmm.
So the woman that can be venerated, honored, praised, adored, emulated is a woman who never has sex, who the only way she had a child was through mystical, magical means. It's the kind of woman no other woman can be. So it's not empowering for women, because the only woman who is practically divine is a woman that no woman can be. And so I don't, so I love Mariology, and I love that a woman has almost goddess-like stature in Christian tradition. I love all of that, but it is also, she's also a woman who is taught about exclusively by male priests, whose status is defined exclusively by male popes, and whose femininity is defined by her virginity.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there is this sort of goddess figure, but I can be a little bit like Jesus. Maybe I can be martyred. Hopefully not, but maybe I can be wise. Maybe I can be loving. Maybe I can be peaceful. Maybe I can work a miracle or two. Maybe I can intercede for people. Maybe I can be Jesus-like in lots of ways. But I'm never going to be a virgin who has a baby.
Right.
I can never be married, and you can never be married.
Right. Well, and I was going to say, not only is there the virgin thing, but there's also the mother thing. And even a lot of females who want to identify with a female God couldn't identify with Mary because they want nothing to do with children and they don't ever want to have kids. And so that again, it's like, she's the image of femininity and what a female should be.
Right. And which is why I've always said, and I've got some very strong feelings about Mary. I love images of Mary. But my Mary, like my Jesus, is very human. And I've always said that if Jesus's mother had been a Bourbon Street prostitute, he would still be the person I chose to follow. He would still be my Lord. Yeah. That he doesn't have to be conceived in unnatural ways that deny sexuality to be special and important and holy. So the whole story is sex negative, it's body negative, and it isn't necessarily empowering to women. So yeah, this Mary, Queen of Heaven, seems grand, except it's also sort of a way of putting women in their place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to Catholic church when I was a kid, I left the church when I was like 15. But not only did we have Mary, but we also had all these different saints that we would pray to and this and that. And then I remember when we were in Jerusalem last year, there was the tomb of Mary. And there were these people just crying over it and trying to touch it. it was just the most craziest thing. I never understood the whole Mary thing. I really didn't.
And I do want to add, myths are important, archetypes are important, heroes are important, whether they existed or not, whether they did what is claimed for them or not. That I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade with this. I'm just saying that we at Sunshine Cathedral have made a choice to read religion, read scripture from the margins, because P.S. that's where they were written. And when you do that, when you read from the margins in an attempt to be liberating, you discover things that are over against maybe the official party line. And so I'm not asking anyone to give up Jesus. God knows I haven't. I'm not asking anyone to give up Mary. I even haven't. But keeping them, embracing them, wrestling with their stories may mean, for some of us, challenging what has been said about them and experience them and sharing them in ways different than we started out. And so when I think of Mary as a peasant girl who got pregnant, and the pregnancy was clearly unplanned, there were stories about, she and Joseph couldn't wait. There were stories about there was no Joseph, that was made up out of whole cloth to sort of preserve her dignity. There were stories about her being attacked by a Roman soldier. So there's all kinds of stories of how it could have happened. How she got pregnant is irrelevant to me, unless it was through some sort of violence, and then of course I'm appalled. But that this peasant girl in a culture that gave no agency or recognition to women, and that a peasant girl with an unplanned pregnancy, possibly as the result of something unfortunate and horrible, she went on to be a formative person in Jesus's life. That Jesus undoubtedly becomes who he is in no small measure because of how he was raised, and women in that culture would have done most of the raising. And so this victim, in lots of ways, of society, of the empire, possibly of violence, of misogyny, that she raises someone that we 2 millennia later call Lord, and that she was with him till the end, that she was witness to the crucifixion, that she led probably the very early church, that when they met in that upper room, that is probably a church community that she is leading. And a lot of the Pentecost art will show her in the middle of the room with the disciples all around her. I have a high regard for Mary, and I don't need her to be a perpetual virgin. I don't need her to have a baby in any other way than the way women have babies. I don't need anything magical about her for her to be a badass hero in my faith story.
Yeah.
And women in those days had no status. They were property. So of course God would be a male figure because men were dominant in that time. Like you said, it was a patriarchal.
And we didn't even know where babies come from, really. We've only known about the egg cell since the 17th century. And so magical conceptions are pretty common until we really know where babies come from. The reproduction amounted to men produce baby batter and insert that into the female's oven, who then bakes the loaf. And you will hear to this day people talk about a bun in the oven.
Yeah.
And then after 9 months, out comes the loaf. And that was how where babies came from. Men provided the stuff. So the human life is in the male semen, is in male sperm. Baby batter goes in the oven. The woman just bakes it,
and then brings vessel.
Yeah, and then just puts it out. And so God can be the guy in that story as well as anyone else, but we got the whole story wrong about even where babies come from. And this whole idea that she was a virgin, that is an application of a verse from Isaiah that Matthew used. This is late in the tradition. Matthew's not even writing till the 80s. Jesus dies in 29. Jesus is long dead before Matthew even writes about this story, that he is taking from Isaiah and applying to Jesus. Jesus, I promise you, never heard the virgin birth story. So, well, our moderator, the Reverend Dr. Robert Griffin, has let us go over time. I blame Sam.
Well, somebody didn't center us
say
well
she
enough.
did it. I just said I blamed her.
We didn't center well enough at the beginning, I guess.
We didn't center, but it was good stuff. You provoked me. All of you provoked me, and then we go long. That's all.
Well, I'm going to
Good job.
moderate and
Stuff,
step
Robert.
in and wrap us this up, but I do think this will be a great conversation, maybe for a share in the chair. Maybe we can find a Catholic priest to come on with you and do a share in the chair, or even join us for our cocktails and Christians and cocktails. And I know several priests who drink, so they would fit right in for Christians and cocktails. But I would, and this I want to just throw out there, and we could pin this for the next one, is a discussion around the Immaculate Conception. Because as a kid growing up, I was always taught that Jesus was the Immaculate Conception, but later learned it was probably really Mary who was the Immaculate Conception versus Jesus. And so the idea of Mary being the Immaculate Conception really changed my thinking all about Mary completely, to say Mary is the badass girl. Just say it.
Immaculate Conception is not the virgin birth. Those are two different stories. But they come from Catholicism, and Protestants have
Adapted
conflated
it.
them. Have conflated them. Yeah.
So anyway, thank you, everybody. Wow, what a lovely conversation. My glass is almost empty. So yes, we're going to wrap this up quickly while the panel gets their final thought together. Just a reminder, Monday through Saturday is prayer. 12:30 on Saturday is Darrell and Sydney Lippert. This coming Wednesday is Sharing the Chair with the Reverend Gail Tapscott. Please join us. And of course, it's all of our programming that's online. If you enjoy what we do, we invite you to watch it. We invite you to share it. And also, if you enjoy what we really do, we invite you also to consider making a donation for it. So let's land this with Dennis and Tito, starting off with closing thoughts. Land it, Dennis, Tito.
Okay. To go along with yesterday's sermon, what I love about Christians and cocktails is if you learn something new, you can change what you used to think about God or what you used to think about as a particular subject, and you get to create a whole new story, and you get to start all over again. So,
And piggybacking on that, talking about God and what God is, male, female, this, that, rock, eagle, mom, whatever. As long as your God is a God of love and not hate, I think you're fine.
Sam and Tara, land the plane for Margarita.
What you got?
Samara.
I'm just happy to be back. I've missed this the last couple weeks because I've been on the e-learning train. I teach elementary kids music, and it's been a daunting task to try to teach 5-year-olds how to mute their mics and turn off their cameras, and it's just so nice to be with adults and have intelligent conversation.
Like, that's what this is for.
And a cocktail. No, but I really appreciated the discussion about Mary, and of course the answer I received to my question about prayer and the visualization. I'm really gonna take that to heart, and I'm excited to try that. So it's good to be back.
And I'm just looking forward to learning more about this Immaculate Conception thing.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
All right, then. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you, panel, for being here with us. And thank you for watching us, everyone. Join us all the other programmers. Listen at sunshinecathedral.org. Just look there and you can find all the stuff that we have going on. Anything else, Darrell? That's it? All right. Our centering thought for you tonight is cheers. Take care, everybody. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bless you.
Where's the off button again? Gosh darn it. There it is.